What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
And I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So this one is actually kind of close to us in a way, since it is a good friend of Jammin John here.
Yeah, man, a really good buddy of mine happened to end up in town this week. Thankful to see him, but right before he ended up in town, he had messaged me saying, hey man, look, I've got a band, I watch your channel, I'm curious to know if you guys will give it a spin, and fucking, of course, you know. I'm never gonna shy away a friend with a band who wants to fucking have their, stuff put out there, so, yeah.
The band is Oak, Ash, and Thorn with their album, May Every Altar Linger. Now this was self-released, it came out in 2018, and this is their first full-length. They have one other EP, I believe. And it's described as pretty much pagan/folk metal, but there are a lot of other elements in this, and we'll definitely get into that.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I had to say it, I would say blackened pagan melodic death metal.
Yeah. There are very thrashy moments on here, too. It's a really interesting listen. But honestly, it is kind of a tale of two halves of the album.
Yeah.
And the tonal shift is very noticeable once you get to the midpoint of the album.
Yeah, once you get to, say, like, the fourth song, it's a whole new fucking ballgame on the record.
So opening up, we have Let the Hearth Fires Burn, and this is the longest song on the album. It is 8 minutes and 24 seconds, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think so.
This is very straightforward pagan metal, folk metal. Definitely harks back to bands like Primordial and Tyr.
Yeah.
Lots of folk melodies. You hear it right away. There's even kind of a stomping drive to it.
And lots of, like, Celtic folk memory.
Yes.
Like, it really digs in there.
And the theme of this album, from what we were told when we were talking to Nate, was essentially about displacement and journeying and finding a new homeland, and how it parallels the Celtic people and how they were displaced by the Romans. And this is also tying into his own personal journey from one strange place to another, which, he's originally from here, which this place is strange.
Right.
And then moving out to Denver, Colorado, which is a totally different kind of strange. It's very upbeat.
Yes.
And I want to say, like, there's almost kind of a happy vibe to it, and that's probably the folk melodies that come in. It kind of doesn't feel very metal, but it feels metal at the same time. It's weird because you go from these very thrashy chugs, and the verses on this song are very driven by, like, a nice little thrashy breakdown.
Yeah, yep.
But it has this nice little fun gallop to it, and the folk melodies inevitably kind of sound a little bit more upbeat and happy, and that's just kind of a thing in folk metal, I think, that's just kind of unique to it. Now, it does break into little bits of, like, melodic death metal and even some thrash. I want to say the bridge, or what I thought was going to be the bridge near the end, almost kind of had that Ride the Lightning bridge feel, which I love the bridge in that song. It's one of my favorite Metallica songs. Interesting enough, though, I thought this was going to be a long bridge, and then it actually faded out pretty much on the next part of that. There was no repeat of the chorus or another verse or anything.
Right. So the vocals. I want to put this out there now just because. First of all, very diverse. The guy that does the clean vocals is also the guy that does the non-clean vocals.
I was actually surprised.
Which is really cool, because I thought there were two vocalists and there weren't. I'd like to see it live, because this guy's ability to switch from growls or whatever kind of cadence he's doing with a lower register, it switches almost immediately into clean vocals. Now, they are really good clean vocals. I actually get reminded of Maynard at times.
There are times it sounds like Maynard.
Which is cool. However, the clean vocals, at least in the front half of the record, are very out there and in front, and there's no reverb on them. They're very dry, which to me takes away a little bit from some of the music. Because they're so dry and out front, it just And
the music is produced really well. I like the production. It
really is. First of all, I want to make a shout out to the drums. Sierra White, Nate's talked in great favor of you, and the drums are fucking killer.
Yes.
I want to say that. I really want to say that. Especially knowing, from talking to Nate, that you play on a 4-piece kit. Solid.
And this trend kind of continues in terms of the front half of this album with, Drink to Your Dead and Cast in a Stone.
Yep.
And the feel for these songs, at least in my opinion, was they wanted to throw in as many folk elements as they could in there and sort of build a metal song around it.
Yeah.
And especially you get that feel on Drink to Your Dead, which sounds like just a flat-out folk song they turn into a metal song, which it might even be the case. It kind of has that, traveling minstrel, drunk in a pub, let's start a fight, battle him,
Actually, you know what? At times I got reminded of like the movie Braveheart, where they're getting ready to go into battle, like walking across the field, and Mel Gibson's face is painted blue, and he looks like a douche. But I mean, I got reminded of that just like epic moment of going to war.
Yeah. And some of it just kind of has that fun feel, too.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, it reminded me a little bit of bands like Ailstorm or maybe Swashbuckle in terms of the more thrashy sections, which there's definitely like an underlying thrash section in these opening tracks.
Sure.
But ultimately, I kind of had a difficult time getting into them just because folk metal really isn't my thing. I do like the melodies. I do like hearing it incorporated in smaller doses, but these were very folk-forward.
And I think this is where it comes into play, a tale between two, modes. I don't know. Because getting into one of my most notably favorite tracks, and it was from the very first time I jammed this album, A Flame in the Woods. First of all, notably heavier difference on the music. Just the whole feel just packs a punch that is found in more melodic death metal.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a real tonal shift. It's very riff-driven. The folk elements are still there, but they're kind of pushed back in favor of more straightforward metal melodies.
Very At the Gates-ish.
Yes.
Very Early in Flames-ish. It's got some really cool, like, gallop chug moments throughout this song.
I love the syncopated drum work.
I do, too.
Pretty much, it feels like you're galloping into battle. It's just a really cool feel. And this kind of dialing down of the pagan style kind of continues on. Headless and Release the Moon, which is a really cool instrumental, really dial back, again, the pagan elements in favor of melodic death metal, thrash metal. There's even some blackened moments in there, too.
Well, like in the song Headless, I was reminded, especially near like the middle of the song, it does have some old thrash moments to it. I would compare it to like Testament and Megadeth at times.
They went for big, solid riffs with giant hooks in them. And they fucking succeeded. There are some legit awesome, memorable moments in these songs.
And another thing I like to, again, especially in Headless, is when it comes off of the really somber bridge. Like, there's a good, 30-second somber bridge where it's pretty slow, and I remember looking at Nick and going, I hope they do this right. And then they came out of it with just, this huge, At the Gates melodic riff, and the whole back half, the last, minute and a half of the song is all instrumental.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
On Headless, I was kind of taken out by some of the vocal cadences on the clean vocals. It's an odd cadence. It doesn't really work for me, but then when they shift over to the chorus, which honestly I think in terms of clean vocals, this has one of the biggest hooks in terms of
because it has a call and response on those vocals. So he does something clean, and then he responds with a growl, and then it's clean, and then responds with a growl. That element brings in a really good dynamic for the song.
I think when it came down to the chant of the song title, they keep saying Headless, it should have been a gang vocal, because
I agree.
There was a moment in Drink to Your Dead where they use some gang vocals, almost kind of that yo-ho-ho kind of feel, but not quite. But here, I think if they all came together and just screamed Headless into the mic, I think it would have had even more impact.
Would have been an epic moment in the studio, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
So after their 3-minute instrumental track, which again I was really impressed with, comes the last song, Forsake the Morrow, which is also a fairly decent length song. I think it's 8 minutes and some change.
Yeah, it's the second longest track.
Whatever. First of all, I really dig the long intro on this. Again, it's almost like a minute and a half of instrumental, which carries so well out of the song prior to it. I got reminded of Ne Obliviscaris for just a second on the melody and the drum work that comes right after that opener.
This one actually had, I think, a bit more atmosphere to it. And it isn't as though atmosphere is really missing on this album, but during this fun little melodic death metal romp that's sort of the back half, it is so riff-driven and just monstrous, you're banging your head, you kind of just miss out on some smaller atmospheric moments. This one opens with some really cool layered atmosphere, and I really got into it. It's just catchy as hell.
Agreed.
I also like the shift in cleans to harsh vocals, especially on the verses early on.
Yes.
The cleans actually fit their part. They're a little bit more upbeat. They kind of have that happy, folky sound. But when it goes down to the growls, it's a real heavy, punchy part.
Well, and the thing about the cleans, especially in this song, is how I noted, that throughout the album, they're really out front and present. In this case, they were back just a cunt hair enough to make it work.
It's a very measurable cut here. I really like the way this song closed. It closed with one of the catchiest riffs on the entire album, and they really worked it all the way towards the end, just kept making it bigger and more epic. And I gotta say, like, this back half was what really sold me on this album.
Me too. Because I'm gonna be brutally honest, I was not sold on the front half.
There's a certain level of camp that kind of comes with pagan metal, folk metal, and it's not necessarily like intentional, because I know there are artists out there that are very serious about it. There's a really cool, rich folklore behind it too.
For sure.
But sometimes it does come off as a little campy, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's just all fucking drinking
songs." A little campy, a little hokey, like, eh.
But these guys are very serious musicians, and they wrote some really, really catchy tunes.
Correct.
But personally, when it came down to the stuff I liked, it was the stuff that was less folk-driven, and it just had folk elements in it. And those really sold me, and this would be why I would get more stuff by them.
Correct,
for sure.
correct.
So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think this is a solid release. Didn't really grab me from the start, but then again, this is more or less just something I'm not personally into. It's not as though it was bad or poorly written. But when it got down to what I would say the heart of the album is, tons of riffs, tons of catchy melodic death metal stuff. And I love hearing melodic death metal. It was a very, very big thing for me when I was getting into more extreme stuff. So yeah, awesome album towards the end there. Front half needed a little bit of work, but this was still a really solid listen, and I recommend all you guys check it out.
I'm going to give it 3.5. Like I said, I will notably admit that the first half of the record was not my jam. Now, that doesn't mean anything as a whole. You know, like Nick said, to elaborate more, this style of music is definitely not my wheelhouse. And I don't want to lack my undereducation in this area of music. I don't want to let that foreshadow what I'm going to do for a rating. I'm a fan of challenging music. I think that's something that speaks to my repertoire as far as what I get into. And the back half of this album really, really kind of spoke to me as far as wanting to get into this style of music more, because if this is what it's like, I dig it. My distaste for the vocals doesn't outweigh the music.
Yeah.
And the music, again, most notably in the back half of the album, was fucking titties. I dig it. So 3.5 stars. And again, you know, Nate, you know I love you, brother. And, you know, thank you for being here and introducing us to this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's a solid lesson.
Yep. 3.5 stars.
So, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. And we are on Instagram.
And we are on Instagram. Once again, I'm sure you've seen it in our videos prior to now. If you have a band and would like it to be heard by the YouTube airwaves, I will definitely run a 2 or 3 minute segment on it in my What's John Jamming compilations. Thank you, I guess, would be what I would say, because as of this morning, we received quite the influx of new bands to check out. You guys take care.
Take it easy, guys.